Welcome to the Woodpreneur podcast, the number one podcast for the business and marketing side of the lumber, woodworking, hardwood flooring, and sawmill industry. I'm your host, Steve from Acres of Timber. Each week, we feature various wood business owners and entrepreneurs from around the globe. We share their stories, paths, insights so that you can network, learn, and grow your own wood business. Thank you so much for listening. Now enjoy the episode. The Woodpreneur podcast is proudly sponsored by Acres CRM. Acres CRM is the wood industry's only customer relationship management software dedicated to helping you automate your sales and marketing so that you can focus on serving your customers and growing your business. You can visit acresoftimber.com to learn more and to schedule a demo. Once again, that's acresoftimber.com. Hey, welcome to a brand new episode of the Woodpreneur podcast. As you know, Steve, today's guest is Haeden Secor from Truett and Grace Construction in Hartwell, Georgia. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for making the time to talk. I'm excited to have you on. Tell us about Truett and Grace. How'd you guys get started?
Yeah, so we started, you're catching us in the very early stages. We probably went into business about 7 months ago.
Whoa, early.
Yeah, very, very, very early, man. So we're definitely at a growing stage, mostly just making connections, networking, stuff like that. The long-term goal is we're more of a general contractor. That's what the goal is. So, being in Lake Hartwell, we're here on the lake. So our long-term goal is we want to start building custom lake homes, kind of designated more towards the higher end homes is what my end goal is. But for right now, just getting started, I'm not turning down any projects. I have a small crew. We do everything from demo, got full remodels. I got into with a few good realtors, and I'm kind of their go-to builder, flipping houses, they'll call me and I'll kind of gut it, remodel it, stuff like that. I do everything from that. Then if I get a call, someone wants to paint a living room, paint a laundry room, I go do that on the weekend just because to me, that's kind of another lead. Just in the very early stages, it's just all about getting your name out there and it's kind of making a name for yourself. And that's kind of just starting out. That's what you got to do, man. So.
Yeah. What was your background? What'd you do before this?
So mostly my background is construction management. I was a superintendent for a general contractor for probably about 4 years. I traveled a lot in those 4 years, built a lot of restaurants, Chick-fil-A, Texas Roadhouse, Chipotle, Capitol Grills. I don't know if you've ever been inside of those. They're kind of more high end, but I built a lot of those and I roll
across the country.
I roll with them. Yeah, man. My first project, I'd moved from South Carolina. They flew me out to Seattle, Washington. And, I was from Seattle, Washington, Portland, Maine, Portland, Oregon, Houston, Texas, all over the place, man. And my role with them was mostly, they were a general contractor and they were based out of Louisville, Kentucky. And so they would pretty much send me out there with a set of blueprints, an address, and a list of subcontractors that they hired from plumbers, electricians, site crew, and then a finish date. And, from there, I kind of took it all. Quality control, permitting, inspections, all that stuff. So I have a big background in managing construction. So that's
so you know how to get things done.
Using my skills. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm using my skills is trying to be a general contractor, but I'm also really good with hands-on, you know what I mean? So I'm kind of right now I'm not doing too much of managing crews. I'm working with the crews like on a daily basis. That's where a lot of my skill comes in is management. And it's even budgeting, I had a big role in that. So I'm kind of trying to use that skill set a lot, and managing subcontractors is that's very difficult, but I've done it for years at a very high pace. Those Chick-fil-A's, I think they gave us 14 weeks from start to finish. They wanted to be selling chicken out the drive-thru. So, you had to get it going quick, then you had to make it nice. And so that's where, a lot of my skill set comes into play.
That's really cool. And what made you want to break out and do it on your own now?
So honestly, I've been talking about it since I was like 14. My dad, he had a concrete company growing up. I worked with him. I was actually homeschooled. So I did a lot of on-the-job classroom work, So I worked with him all through high school, and I always wanted to start my own construction company. And I figured going after construction management was going to be the best route to get me there. And we moved to Hartwell, Georgia from Alabama probably about 2 years ago. And I was working for a general contractor here, actually doing a lot of industrial work. So there was a plant here in Seneca. It's the Borg Warner plant. They do a lot of work for Ford Motors and all that. Their transfer cases. They were hit by a tornado about 2-3 years ago, and wiped out of the plant. And I was the lead guy on the whole front of the plant. So the employee center, the administration office, I kind of put all that back together. and a few other industrial jobs, and kind of realized the industrial life wasn't for me. And so I just figured it was a good chance to, go ahead and make that leap and go out on my own. So I don't know. I definitely don't regret the decision, man. It's been awesome. I mean, it's been rough just getting out, and especially trying to be a general contractor is very rough right
Yeah.
from the get go, because you got to have an arsenal of people that you can fall back on: plumbers, electricians, framers. You got to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
those connections. So a lot of what I do on a day to day basis is just networking, all the way from, I spend a lot of times at Home Depot, so it's just dropping my card off at Home Depot. If I see someone wearing a construction T-shirt or something, I start talking to them, and it's worked out pretty good. I've linked up
Yeah.
with some good people, and kind of trying to create a little kind of arsenal. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I'm going after right now.
Like a network of subcontractors, right?
Yeah, network is subcontractors and kind of just people you can lean on. Because if I'm going after building these lake homes, or even I want to do turnkey. You know what I mean? Like, they show up, this is what we want, and then take it from there. So you got to have those people to fall back on, supply manufacturers, local distributors. That's a huge role in being a general contractor, is just having those connections. So, that's the
That
goal right there.
that's really cool. And explain the first 6 months of this. Like, what'd you do to get started?
I probably decided, I was on a project here, and I started the project. It was like a 1 year project, an industrial expansion. And I was probably about 6 months into it. I decided it wasn't for me. But at the same time, I'm not about to leave a company high and dry. I started the project, I'm going to finish it. So I was probably about 6 months in. I was a superintendent on this project, and I kind of first started working all the paperwork in, getting my LLC set up, my insurance, licensing, started with that. And then I started advertising lightly, just yard signs, social media ads, Facebook ads, stuff like that. And I was working pretty much 2 jobs for about 3 months. So I'd work the full-time job till 5, and then I would be all the way from painting houses, sealing concrete, doing trim work on the weekends when I was finished with that, because I wanted to make sure before I quit and lost that cash flow, that it was going to be stable. That was my main goal, was to have it set up when I took that leap, because I'm all about making things as least stressful as possible. So I had the
Yeah.
time, so I was like, right now I need to focus on the kind of more logistic sides of it, the paperwork, making sure it's set up right. So once I get going and I'm actually working in the field and stuff like that, I don't have to worry about, getting licensing set up, my LLCs, insurance, all that stuff that is covered. And then once actually I asked a guy, I did a lot of asking around, being a superintendent managing. I'm talking to people that own successful companies all day long. You know what I mean? So I had quite a few people to lean
Yeah.
back on, and I asked a few guys, and this one guy said, the best way to do it if you're wanting to go out on your own, he says, you don't quit your full-time job until you're losing money going to work. So you kind of start your little side
Yeah.
hustle.
Yeah.
And once
Yeah.
that's
I
making
love
money,
that.
if you're waking up in the
Yeah.
morning, you're going to work, and you're like, man, I'm losing money right now because I'm making more money over there. Well, that's the time. That's when you need to make that leap and go for it.
That's exactly what I tell people. I
Yeah.
said, you want to create a problem with your day job, so much so
Yeah.
that there's like a friction, right? Like, you got your side hustle and you got your day job, and
Yeah.
your day job is causing a problem to your side hustle.
Oh, yeah,
And
definitely.
or you're making more money on your side hustle, that
Yeah.
then it's time to go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you were able to
That's
do that within 3 months?
Yeah, it was about 3 months. 3 months is when I started actually turning, a livable profit. Was up 3 months, and so it took off. And honestly, it's super blessed. It's taking off very well. Um, it's taken off very well. I think some of it has to do with a smaller town. We are a smaller town, so I'm not advertising too much. I had yard signs for those; they get mowed down and stuff like that. So I'm not advertising much, and it's mostly word of mouth. It's word of mouth is what's going to get you by in kind of smaller areas, which we have. Athens, Georgia, they're an hour from us. Greenville, South Carolina, they're an hour from us. So I have goals on venturing out into those areas. But my biggest thing that I'm telling myself right now is I'm not going to tack on anything that I can't handle, because in a small area, it only takes, 1 or 2 jobs to kind of go south and not work out through
Mess up your reputation.
Yeah. So I'm not
Yeah.
trying to overload myself. I'm trying to do it right, do the groundwork now and then later start sailing. That's my goal, and that's kind of a mindset where I'm going, because I've learned I've watched construction companies for a better 5 years of my life, I've got to sit back and watch them, what works and what doesn't work. And what I've learned is it's the
Yeah, yeah.
stress of overloading yourself and you lose track of stuff, and that's what makes projects go south, just overloading yourself, which sometimes you have to. But
What was the most profitable projects for you? Like, what do you love to do? What's your bread and butter?
honestly, man, demolition has been very good. I've had a few so I've had a few projects now where I've demoed, retrofitted stuff like that, and honestly, I've made the most money, not the most money, but the most profit percentage off demolition. And I think it's just because um, all I'm supplying is a dumpster. And I put a little markup on the dumpster, but I supply the dumpster and 4 or 5 guys, and we can knock a house out in 3 or 4 days, completely gut a house down to the stud. And you don't have much overhead in that. And so demolition has been pretty good. And that's another thing, just working out my pricing too. You know what I mean? Because for one thing, we just moved up to this area, and so making sure my bids are down pat. But I would say demolition probably. I've had a pretty good profit percentage off demolition, honestly.
And the dream you said is to start building lake homes.
Yep. Yeah, custom homes is what I'm going for.
Yeah, yeah. And your marketing plan was just like yard signs and word of mouth and that sort of
Yeah.
stuff, like networking.
Yeah, I kind of had to handle it a little bit different because going back to, I didn't want to overload myself, is I didn't want to advertise too hard because for one thing, I had a full-time job. I was working from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. I had a full-time job, so there was only so much time I could put into it. So one of my fears was, advertising hard right off from the bat, like just Facebook ads, signs, all that stuff, and then it taking off, getting so many phone calls and having to turn down so much of it and kind of lose, I don't want to say lose a reputation, but you know what I mean? But if you're advertising super hard and you can't do like any of the work, it kind of maybe puts a little bad taste in people's mouths. So I think I started with maybe 3 yard signs. I put them up, in my yard signs, like I made them stand out. You know what I mean? Because you see yard signs all the time, and I made them really professional. I made them a little oversized. I put my Instagram, social media tags in there so people can kind of see what I was doing a little bit. And I made them stand out a little different than the rest of them. And they worked, honestly, they worked super good. I think the first probably 8 or 9 jobs came from a yard sale outside of Home Depot. So, it's crazy. I think all in all, it's probably a $40 yard sign placed in front of the Home Depot that was kind of made me to be able to make that jump. So
That's crazy.
yeah, so it's
That's
mostly
crazy.
just yard signs, honestly, man.
Yard signs. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so right now, is it just you? Do you have any part-time, full-time staff with you?
Honestly, if anyone asks me what our biggest weakness is, it's manpower right now. Man, I'm getting plenty of jobs and I'm getting plenty of requests and stuff like that, but having the manpower, as far as management and the paperwork, all that is just me. I'm the only full-time employee. I have probably 5 or 6 guys that I keep pretty busy, but the turnover rate in those 5 or 6 guys, I mean, they go down to like the day. I mean, I probably went through 20 people in the past 6 months. And
Wow.
biggest problem is just having people show up working a day or working 2 days. They get the money they need, and then I never see them again. I have really very high goals for this company. Like I have it, so I'm willing to
Yeah.
pay really good money for someone who can show up on a day-to-day basis. And that's probably honestly my biggest struggle right now is just keeping, and I'm very easy to work for. Like I treat them very fairly, and just having good foremen and good workers that I can lean on is really, that's what's going to make or break me. I can already see that. That's going to be, the biggest hurdle right now for sure.
That's great. And so you were been able to go full-time after 3 months, which is nuts.
Yep.
And then, so what's the big plan this year? Do you think a custom home is in the cards for this year?
Oh, I actually had a guy reach out to me. I'm upfront with people and I'm honest, and it goes all the way back to not overloading myself. But I had a guy reach out to me. I went and looked at it. It was kind of a abandoned house, not quite abandoned, but it needed a full gut. It needed a lot of work done, and he wanted me to do all of it. He's like, "Hey, I need you to do all of this," and I said, "Well, how quick do you need this done?" He said, "I need it done in like 2 months," and I was just upfront with him. I said, "Man, I can't handle that." And I said, "But this is what I can handle. I can handle
Yeah.
this right here. If I can't handle something, I always give them a good connection. You know what I mean? Like if they're like,
Yeah.
can you do the plumbing, electrical?" I said, "No, I can't, but here's 2 good guys that, they'll work out really good for you." So if anybody calls me, if it's something I can't take on, I always try to give a reference and kind of start a
Yeah.
conversation. That way I'm at least in their mind. It's probably not this year at Custom Home, definitely not maybe next year, because also a big side of it is, builder's license. I have all that stuff. I'm studying for it. I think I'm set up to take the class in the next 2 months or the test. And that's a decent size to get your builder's license. It's a decent sized test. I mean, they sent me a box like this, and there's probably about 14 different books that thick. And it's
Damn.
an open book test, but still, that's something that's kind of a hurdle to jump. Is
Sure,
getting that
sure.
builder's license is the biggest thing.
Wow. Wow. Dude, I'm excited for you. It sounds like a really great opportunity. And I love the ambition. I love how you bet on yourself early on. Just kind of the makings of a great woodpreneur. So, this is a part of the podcast where I give you any marketing or business advice. So, is there anything that you're struggling with or things that you need help with that I can help you with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling with quite a few of them. I don't know how many of them fall kind of in your ballpark. I think you have my Instagram open, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, I
Or,
have it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can give me kind of some tidbits, I kind of changed the direction of my Instagram a little bit. I'm not really using it for marketing. I'm more trying to, you know, I don't want to say gain followers because that makes it sound like I'm just trying to gain people. But, I've realized there's a lot of opportunities on social media. There's tons
Yeah.
of it. And I've realized that. So, kind of changed my Instagram to more of like a comedy, DIY, how to, stuff like that. And it's growing. I mean, I probably average maybe 3 or 4 followers a day, which isn't a lot, but I've only been taking it serious for probably the next 3 months. I'd say if you have any advice on just networking through media, that would be awesome.
Yeah, well, before I get into that, I definitely have some ideas. How would you like to utilize social media? Like when you said opportunities, like what's your biggest sort of
So, I mean,
dream opportunity?
okay, so do you follow a guy named Winnie Designs?
Woody?
Winnie. It's Winni Designs.
Okay.
If you don't follow him, he's a tile guy. He does a lot of bathroom remodels, but he's
Yeah.
gained a huge following, and he's going all the way down to he's trying to come up with his own line of tools, apparel, stuff like that. That he's kind of
How do you
advertising.
spell his name again?
Winni Designs, and I think the
W-I.
logo would be like a red
Oh,
background.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but he does a lot of bathroom model stuff like that, and he's created a very good following. So I don't want to say I'm mimicking that, but that's kind of the goal. You know what I mean? Kind of go in that direction. I mean, all the way down to selling. I try to say that I got the best drip in the construction industry when it comes down to my logos and T-shirts and stuff like that. I try to make them look pretty good. So all the way down to selling T-shirts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so you want to build a personal brand, basically.
Yeah, yeah. That's what
Okay.
I'm trying to do
Okay.
right there. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So, for you, I feel like I just posted about this. The biggest thing is what you want to do is just start playing around with different styles of content, right? Like
Yeah.
some informative, some entertaining, some day in the life, and
Yep.
see if
Yep.
you can come up with almost like a schedule or a routine for what types of content that you do, right? So like
Yeah.
maybe
Definitely.
morning is some motivation, um, afternoon you talk about like what you're working on. Time lapses are like super popular
Oh
obviously,
yeah.
and
Definitely.
doing that sort of stuff. I like the direction of the personal brand. The other big thing too is utilizing your Facebook personal profile. So
So
many people have
beneficial.
heard me talk about this. Many people have
Yeah.
heard me talk about this. It is utilizing your Facebook personal page in order for you to grow. So, like what you do on Instagram, post it onto your personal Facebook page. If you
Okay.
post a reel on your Instagram, post the same reel on your Facebook personal page. And
Okay.
so people are building massive amount of followers. This is a tip for everybody listening. People are building massive followings with their personal Facebook page. I mean, I have a client, he's actually monetized his personal Facebook page. Like he's getting like a grand a month just from posting, and he owns a sawmill company, right? Like, and he's getting like bonuses for that. Now I'm not saying you should chase that, but if you want to build an audience, do it here on Instagram. Take that same thing, post it on TikTok. I saw that you got a YouTube Shorts. Do it on YouTube Shorts, and then do it
Yep.
on your Facebook personal page. Don't ask me if it's the business page. Don't do that. Your personal page. You know, the one where you're connected to your high school people, right? Like, you know that one?
Yeah. No, I got
Yeah,
you.
that one. And
Okay.
I'm pushing everybody to remember that if you have a big brand, everybody remembers you. Everybody, you get a lot of opportunities.
Yep.
And when you go to bid on a job, there's just like this little thing that people like, if they start looking you up, which what people do, and they see that you got a ton of followings and you got your personality and you got your face out there like that, it makes you more personable,
Yeah.
right? You know, like people have become my clients because they've been listening to my voice for like 1 to 2 years before they even got to work with me. So they know what I'm about to say. They know my personality before they
Yeah.
even work. And imagine that level of relatability that you can get with a personal client. Okay. And so here's the other thing is you should also connect and become friends with every major business person and influential person in your town. And you can do that through your Facebook personal page, right?
Right. Yeah.
Connect to their business, find out who the owner is, DM them. Like, look at yourself as like you're your own media channel. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
That's what I would do. I mean, you know, again, for you, make sure you got a website, right? Like, get a
Yeah.
website
Yeah.
going. At least you can direct people towards your website, collect leads, right? Even if it's just to collect leads, have a website just to collect leads, right?
I got you. Yeah.
That you can follow up on. And then the last thing, because you mentioned something about like keeping guys around, you want to employ people around,
Yep.
is
Yep.
if you build a personal brand and you connect with a lot of people in your area, people will start to come to you,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
if people start coming to you, then you can build a level of leadership towards them. And put it out there that like I'm looking for good people. I'm looking for
Hmm.
good people. So one last thing, because I've never really addressed this on the podcast before, is if you find somebody, if you find 3, 4 guys that are really good, you need to court them. You need to
Yeah.
like wine and dine them. And I know you know how to do this, but before you, when you had a company, you had the stability of the long term job and the whatever.
Yep.
So it was easy
Yep.
to attract people. But on yourself, you have to like court people. So whether it is sending them Starbucks gift cards or getting them their own set of tools, or like if they work
Yeah.
with you for a little while, like throw them a t-shirt, throw them a hoodie, like get them all on a text message chain, and then like send them motivational books. Like find out what they're really really into and
Yeah.
give it to them. Find out
Definitely. Definitely.
find out like what their goals are and give it to. If they're bad with money, hook them up with a bank account. Like give them your banker. You know what I mean? Like give them
Yeah.
all of the things that they need so that when they think of you, they think about their future.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Definitely.
Because you can't grow with like I see the same thing. You can't grow with people that are half committed at all.
Yep.
You need
That's the
leaders
biggest thing.
around.
Yeah.
You need good people around. I know you have 2, 3 people that you like right now, right?
Yeah.
Send them a text message when we get off this call and be like, "Hey man, just checking in, how things going?" Like, you know, keep
Yeah.
them
Definitely. Yeah.
keep them close, keep them really really close.
Hmm.
So, anyway, was that helpful?
Yeah, dude. That was a lot of help, man, for sure. Yeah. That was definitely some
Awesome,
things I needed to hear, man.
awesome, awesome. So, tell me, you know, you're 7 months in. I mean, not to take away your years of construction management experience, because like you're a
Hmm.
seasoned pro, you're not a newbie to this industry. What's the 1 to 2 big lessons that you learned from going out on your own in the first 7 months of your business?
So number one is probably you got to make money. You know, the biggest lesson I learned from the beginning is when you're first starting out. Like I know you do a lot of like, yeah, I heard a lot of wood workers on here. Like if you work up you start up a woodworking shop or anything like that, don't think just because you're brand new that you have to cut your prices in half. Don't think just because you're new to the scene and you're new in it that you can't charge just as much as everyone else, because that was a mistake I first made when I first came in. In my mind, I was like, I'm new to this. I got to be a little cheaper than the competitors, which is true. You do have to, when you're first started, you can't go highest in the area, but, don't cut yourself short, because you got to make money. And, I was charging less than I should have. I could have been making way more. And the excuse was I was new. And I was like, well, I'm new, but I know what I'm doing. So I'm offering the same what anyone else is offering. So you got to match the prices. Number two is honestly just not overloading yourself. You got to have some breaks. You put so much into the company and you need to do that, but at the same time, you need to have breaks. And you got to find people. When you're first starting out, everyone has competitors, but when you're first starting out, you can't really look at them as competitors. You got to look at them as teammates. You know what I mean? Because if you look at them as competitors, especially in a small town, you need to create a relationship with other people in the area that's offering the same thing you do, because they might be lacking in one area that you're really succeeding. You can switch, business back and forth, and those kind of people are something to really lean on. And I guess number three is just, it's kind of rough. It's very rough when you're first starting out, because you get a wake up call. And I kind of made a quick leap. About 3 months, and I made that leap, and it was not getting sappy or anything, but I called someone who's been doing it for a long time, and I was like, hey man, I just quit my job, all that. Do you think I made the right decision? And, he said that there's two things to look at. He said, for one, you always got to remember the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So just because you did your dream, you started your own company, and, you're going, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. But on the other hand, he said, don't cut yourself short on how green you can make that grass. So it's kind of, it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows in the beginning, but you can turn it into that. You got to put the work in. So everything you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And not much advice, but that's probably the only 3 advices I have.
Repeat that, what you just said. The grass isn't always greener, but repeat that.
And I don't think he realized how motivating it was, but no, he just said that, remember that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It's not all sunshine and rainbows just because you started your own business. It's not going to be clear sailing. But he said, on the other hand, don't cut yourself short on how green you can make that grass. Just meaning,
don't cut yourself on.
It's you now. Nobody else is making these decisions for you. It's you. You have to make the money. You have to make the decisions. So it's what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So, you just let me know it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. It can be an amazing business. It can be one of the best decisions you ever made in your life, but it's up to you to make it the best decision. It's what you put into it. So
that's the knowledge bomb of the day. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, man, I don't think you realize how much it actually stuck with me, because it's hard, especially the first 4 months, because you're learning. And I don't ever call anything a mistake. Someone can easily look at my paper and look at my jobs. It's like, well, that's a mistake. It's like, no, that's just learning, man. That's
yeah.
In your first year, nothing is a mistake. Nothing is a mistake.
It's all learning.
It's all learning. It's lessons learned, because you do it once here, you're not going to do it again. You know what I mean? So it's all just learning. So just, don't get down on yourself. It's easy on social media and all that to make it look so easy. You got to put the work in. So.
Not at all. Not at all. Hayden, thank you so much, man. That was so cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been super excited all week, man. I appreciate you reaching out, dude. It was super cool, man.
Awesome, man. And what's your Instagram and the people can follow you?
It's Truett and Grace Construction. That's the same across all platforms. I think TikTok is That Contractor, because TikTok's kind of a different animal. I kind of post a little more comedy on there and stuff like that. So I think on TikTok is That Contractor, but YouTube, Instagram is Truett and Grace Construction.
Cool. All right, man. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for hopping on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Woodpreneur Podcast, the #1 podcast for the business and marketing side of the lumber, woodworking, hardwood, flooring, and sawmill industry. If you like what you heard, please give us a 5-star rating and review. You can also tap into our community by visiting woodpreneurlife.com. Once again, that's woodpreneurlife.com. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode.